So my week was pretty interesting. I don't know exactly what triggered it, but I have spent a lot of time considering where I end up sending the money that I make. And that goes for a lot of mindsets, but mainly in terms of spending in excess and then what my money goes into supporting. First of all, I don't have a ton of money. I don't mean to present this video as if I'm a big spender that has the capacity to make big impacts in places, whether that's charitably or otherwise, but I do know that my money doesn't stop moving as soon as it leaves my hands. And so I'm making attempts to be wiser about where I send it, regardless of how small an impact that money has the capacity to make. In part, this started at the beginning of the week with a purchase of an indie game called Wordplay. Wordplay is this really simple roguelike that's very similar to Balatro, but instead of poker, the gameplay loop is about spelling words with tiles that are very similar to Scrabble. Depending on how good you are at spelling or how big your vocabulary is, it can be difficult at a base level, but those harder difficulties ramp up a lot in terms of the difficulty of the gameplay. But that's mainly because in the higher difficulties, it gets harder and harder to find good perks and upgrades that will keep your run going. And I think that is the main way that it differs from Balatro. In that game, you have a lot of different ways to upgrade the cards that you can play, whether that's through just raw points, modifying the cards, or modifying your deck in any other way. And you have a lot of chances to do that in the shops. But in Wordplay, you only get one chance to get something to assist you, and you can't like purchase multiple things at once. And so you have to play really well to guarantee that you'll have the resources to be able to get something big and important to scale your build, or you just have to pray you're going to get lucky if you're not the best at the game and haven't lucked into really big words that can get you further into a round. There's less of a resource management element to the game simply because there's less opportunity to spend those resources, and spending them doesn't net you as much positive feedback. The game was put together by a developer that I've been following on YouTube for a while. His name is Game Maker's Toolkit on YouTube. This is a second game, and it's on Steam for $7.99. And since buying it on Sunday, I have already gotten 10 hours out of it, so I definitely recommend it. And it was certainly worth a few dollars to support him. And it was also something that I could play with Benjamin because he really likes word games. We ended up beating hard mode together a few days ago after like 4 or 5 runs. And that was the first difficulty I actually had to do repeat runs of to be able to get through it. He and I also played a bit of Marvel Rivals this week. Rivals isn't my favorite game of all time, but honestly, my complaints about it start and end with the genre that it's a part of rather than the design of the game itself. Games that are exclusively team-based are really lame to play when you realize you have to actually interact and strategize with the people on your team, which is often filled with children, people without game sense, or people that take the game way too seriously yet don't own up to any of their own mistakes within the game. And then they end up blaming you for absolutely everything that goes wrong. Despite those issues with team-based shooters generally, Rivals has some of my favorite characters in all of fiction, plus it's something that I can play regularly with my friends, so that removes the complaint about the team-based element because it means I get good teammates to play with. But it makes it so that I can't exactly pick it up and enjoy it for an extended period of time playing alone. As a bit of an aside, when I was 13, there was this mobile game that I was really into, and I'd play it constantly on one of the first phones I ever had, and that game was Marvel Future Fight. I don't really know what genre you'd call it or how to effectively describe it other than the fact that it had my favorite superheroes in it. And it's a mobile game designed to keep you playing and keep you grinding so that your characters are always at like an acceptable power level. Along with having movie tie-ins anytime that there was a new Marvel movie that released, it introduced me to quite a few obscure, or I guess less mainstream Marvel characters that I still love to this day. That game was the first time I ever encountered Moon Knight, who I still love, Sharon Rogers, a future version of Captain America, was one of my most powerful characters in that game for a significant amount of time. I haven't really put a ton of effort into looking for them, but I would love to read a comic with her in it someday. Most importantly, though, I was playing the game constantly when an update came out with a entirely original character debuting in Marvel Future Fight, and that character was Luna Snow, currently of Marvel Rivals fame. So since I was there when Luna Snow was born, she was my first ever main in Marvel Rivals. And she's sort of simple, but is the most effective if you're really good at aiming, which other healing characters in the game have other ways to mitigate having to aim really precisely. At the launch of the game, the people that I played with wanted to play DPS characters the most, so I ended up playing Luna at first, but I ended up ultimately becoming the designated tank of the group at the time, and I had a really hard time with tanking at first, but after getting past the initial learning curve, I found that I really enjoyed the strategy of the role. I main Magneto now, and he's also one of my favorite Marvel characters now, but he's my favorite for solo tanking and acting as like an anchor for the team. I've loved playing as Hulk to give my teammates great power-ups in the form of the connections that the superheroes have that give them more utility most of the time. And then I also really enjoy the Thing for when I'm not solo tanking and can get further ahead alongside another tank and displace and do a lot of damage. Other than that, I can one trick as Moon Knight too, and I think I'm one of 3 Moon Knight players in the world that knows how to aim instead of like just shooting at donks. This week I spent $10 on the game for the summer skin pass as I wanted the thong skin. And it also came with a bunch of emoticons, which I didn't have any of previously. I think there's something to say about sending my money to Marvel, which is effectively a subsidiary of Disney, who is a target on the BDS boycott list that I try to stick to as much as possible. But I think more notably, I'm sending my money to NetEase, which is a Chinese game developer. I really don't know how much Marvel or Disney is in their pockets, but I don't really mind sending money to a state outside of the US or to a country affected by really stupid Red Scare propaganda, so it's not really on my conscience. Plus, it's a game that I can play with my friends, so I don't really mind spending money on it. And when I want to interact with Marvel more, I go to the public library, which I feel good about supporting. Along with that boycott list, I have been trying to spend my money more locally rather than at major corporations. So I went to the fair with Benjamin this week. It was a nice way to spend the evening, and we ate a lot of shitty food and walked around the various exhibits. And it was surprisingly cheap as well. It was like $15 to get in and then a few to park as well. We only encountered one vocal homophobe the entire day too, which was a pleasant surprise. With everything that I'm saying about ways that I choose to spend my money, I don't think it's wrong to assess spending my money on one of my favorite games, Fortnite, since a third of the developer is now owned by Disney. First of all, I'm being really preachy right now. While I do think making these decisions about where I send my money is good, ultimately it's large-scale shifts that fully affect what companies get money. Second of all, Epic Games is actually really good about supporting their developers and the people that contribute to their game. There's massive creator support programs, whether that's through like internet creators or people that develop maps for the game, and they have tons of artists on hire and contract for designing all of the cosmetics and locations in the game and such. Point 2.5, I think money has the capacity to speak in situations like this one. I don't know what Epic's financials look like at the end of the day, but I do know that they're a very analytical company that constantly releases surveys and looks at their own game numbers to decipher what works the best. And so when I buy Epic original skins that I really like, I think my money's telling Epic that I want these artists to be brought back to make more money for them and to get more cosmetics to the player base. Third, I canceled my Fortnite crew subscription. I really don't need to be spending money on it monthly. And fourth, like with Marvel Rivals, I don't have a problem putting money into a game that I'm going to continue to play with people that I love, like I do at least weekly with my dad. For our weekly Fortnite extravaganza, I honestly don't think we won a single game. Something happened to Blitz that made it way sweatier, which I might blame my dad for because he's been grinding crowns. And then BR was extra chaotic with Superman being on the map, as well as other mid-game objectives, and a lot more players being online for Superman specifically, I think. They also recently made changes to the way that certain items work, like with shields, where for some reason you can't drink them while you're jumping or falling anymore. And so as you're moving, it's hard to stay topped off with your health more, and I really don't understand why they made that change. This morning I had to rush to my computer because I forgot that the rocket launch event was being redone in the Fortnite OG game mode, and watching it really took me back. It ended differently this time too, with a red rift in the sky rather than the blue ones that have been in Fortnite for forever. And I'm excited to see if that leads to actual changes within the OG mode, because I think it really needs something to diverge in a different direction for the mode to be more successful. This week I spent a bit of time with some other games too. I played a bit of Apex with Gage, and I played a bit of Smash Bros with Benjamin. In other news, I ended up uninstalling Spotify. I've never been able to get my phone to work to play music from my Spotify in my car properly. And since I love collecting physical media, I ended up starting a small CD collection to keep in my car that takes up pretty much all the time that I listen to music in my car. Spotify also pays its artists really shittily, and I'd rather directly support the artists that I listen to anyways, as it benefits them more. So I finally looked into unsubscribing recently when their CEO invested and got put on the board of directors for a company manufacturing AI military equipment. I personally don't really fuck with killing people, and I especially don't fuck with training robots to kill people. So I'm planning to keep my $20 a month for the family plan and end up putting that into expanding my CD collection. I actually ripped them all to my PC yesterday, and I can now listen to them anywhere. Side note, Dad, the disk drive that you gave me to be able to do that with a while ago had our family's copy of Mulan in it still. You might want that back. Leave a comment if you know a good place to buy CDs, or if you have an album you recommend me buying or listening to sometime. Thank you for watching. This has been week 7 of my HIFAWIP journal, where I tell you how I feel about what I played this week. And I'll see you again next week.